Well, hello everyone. Um, Being a novice in the aerial videography realm, uh, I don't know a lot about things in general, but I'm learning, and I'm learning quickly about various things. And one of the things I learned about recently was using filters. Now, I'm in no way, shape, or form an expert on any of this stuff, but I do use this medium as a mechanism for teaching myself. Um, and what I mean by that is when I can explain something to somebody else, it solidifies the concepts in my own head. And so I use this sort of approach to help teach myself things. So I'm sharing what I learned with you, and this is on a very rudimentary level, but it's explaining it for people like myself who really don't understand all the seriously technical aspects of photography. So if you're an expert on this stuff, you might want to move along. You'll probably be bored, but I would not be opposed if you stayed and watched this and were able to review it and correct anything that I make mistakes on, because I wouldn't be surprised if I did, and I won't be butthurt if you do find something. So either way, hang around and let's talk about filters. So why do we need a filter with the Phantom drones? Or more specifically, any drone that has a fixed aperture. Now if you look at this slide here, you'll see various apertures, various diameters of apertures for lenses, and it shows you the f1.8, f2.8. The Phantom camera is fixed at 2.8, and so you see the size of the diameter of the lens. What that means is we don't have any means of control over the numbers of photons that are passing through the lens and being captured on the sensor. So because we don't have any control over that, we have to do a couple of things maybe to improve the quality of our media product. So one of the factors involved in the quality of the images that are being recorded through the lens is the shutter speed. That's how long the shutter stays open and captures photons on the sensor. Now, you can be recording at 30 frames per second, and what will happen is you'll hit that one frame, the shutter will open for however long it's going to open for and will close, and then you'll get to the next frame, the shutter will open and close, and you'll continue taking pictures that way. By default, the DJI software for the Phantom has these things set to automatically adjust. And one of the things about it being automatic that's good is if you're taking video, the light can be changing as you turn whatever from second to second, and having it set to be automatic sort of simplifies or dummy proofs to some extent those settings. Now, the thing is with shutter speed, if you have a higher shutter speed, or it opens and closes faster and captures the photons it needs, it tends to create a very crisp, a very sharp image. And these things are really good for still photography, but for those of us who are doing video, we want things to look a little smoother, we want things to flow, we want things to not have those sharp edges, because if they do, things can look choppy, things can just not look natural. And especially if you're moving. If you're moving, we want to see a blurred speed, and we want to see smoothness around the edges of things. And the slower shutter speed definitely moves us in that direction. Now, from what I'm reading, the rule of thumb is for whatever your frame rate is, you should have the shutter speed be twice what your frame rate. So if you're running at 25 frames per second, your shutter speed should be at 50. If you're running 30 frames per second, your shutter speed should be at 60. And you can adjust these manually by going into the software and hard setting them. And of course, as you're flying around, you can be watching that and go in and change it. But who wants to be doing that? You're flying, you're trying to center shots and things like that. So that's why, in my opinion, having these things set automatically is a better scenario for getting good video. So, with that being said, if you have your shutter speed being set automatically, it's going to set itself based on the amount of light that's coming in to the lens. And if you've got a large amount of light coming into the lens, the shutter speed's going to get set very high, and you're going to get very sharp images. And again, we don't want that. So what can we do to lower that shutter speed so that we get the quality of the images we want? And what we do is we fool the camera into thinking that we've changed the aperture. We've reduced the diameter of the aperture, and we do that through filters. If we are able to limit the number of photons coming in, it fools the camera into thinking that the aperture is smaller and that it can take or have a longer time with the shutter open. What this does is it allows us to capture more color, more definition, and when we're in motion, it blurs things slightly so that it's pleasing to the eye. So we do this through filtering. Now, there are a number of basic filters you can get. Most filter sets, especially beginner sets like the one I have recently purchased, have just the polarizing lenses, and these polarizing lenses basically reduce reflection and glare. It's like wearing polarized sunglasses, basically, and enhances the colors. But what you do to adjust the aperture virtually is to use neutral density filters. So these ND filters actually reduce the amount of light that's entering the lens, and it does it across the entire spectrum so that it doesn't enhance or take away from any colors. That's why it's called neutral. And it, in essence, allows the automation within the camera to slow the shutter speed. You also have colored filters, which tend to be orange or green or blue, things that are going to enhance colors that you may be taking pictures of or photographing or videoing. So if you notice the picture on the right hand side of this slide, all of the filters that are there have a number on them. Usually they start with ND, as we know means neutral density, followed by a number. It's a scaling number. It basically doubles itself based on how much light it is blocking. Usually it starts with an ND2, then 4, then 8, then 16. And again, you'll notice also on the edges of the filters you'll see a PL, and that means it's a polarizing. And you can have combinations of these. Some of them you'll see, so we'll say like ND8-PL. And so it's not only is it neutral density, but it also does some polarizing as well. So, as I've said, I don't want to get technical in here, but in essence, what these values mean are, for example, the ND2 filter basically is cutting the diameter of the aperture in half. So it is cutting the amount of light that is coming in half. The ND4 cuts it by a quarter, ND8 by an eighth, and you see how this pattern works itself up. I imagine very quickly as you were getting towards 32, 64 that things get very dark. Typically, those of us that are using these for videography appear to fluctuate between ND4 and ND16. Typically, also ND4 and 8 are what we use, and those are in the basic filter packages that we purchase. So with the ND number, the higher the number, the more light is filtered. Alright, so now I'm going to share with you the filters that I purchased for my initial experimentation with these now. Because I'm experimenting, because I'm still figuring out what I'm doing. I didn't necessarily buy the top of the line filters, the really expensive ones, but I also didn't buy the super cheapo ones. So I went around mid-range price, mid-range quality. These are, you know, things you can look at the reviews on, etc. So I bought these newer filter kit. Notice for the DJI Phantom 3, when you go out and buy these things, be very careful and be very specific about what it is you're purchasing, because a lot of these filters will only work on either the Phantom Pro and Advanced or the Phantom Standard. The thing is, with the Phantom Pro and Advanced, you can actually screw off the existing filter that comes with the camera and then screw the new one on in its place, whereas that functionality is not available with the Standard. You have to have a sleeve, which is included in this package, for putting the filter on and sliding it over the camera lens. Alright, so let's open this up and take a look. Alright, there's our sleeve for attaching the filter onto the lens. And we've got a nice little handy dandy case for keeping the filter safe. So nicely velcroed. I'm sure it will fit in our pack very easily. And these have come in these nice little plastic sheaths to keep the lenses safe. All right, and so we'll put them back in here when we're done. Yeah, so what do I have? Well, let's open these things and find out. Alright, well, first of all, we know what this is. So as you can see, there's little kind of little pinchers that will grip onto the lens. Alright, and our first lens here we have. Alright, so this first one we actually have a UV filter, so that's nice, ultraviolet. And next we have this looks like the polarizing lens. Next we have, alright, this is the ND8, so this is the one that will make the aperture appear to be 1/8 of what it actually is, so you can see that on the camera, how dark that is. Finally, we have the ND4. So I would expect that we're going to be using the ND4 and the ND8 the most. Now these have a little bit of weight to them. I'm not sure how that's going to react with the gimbal. So how you put these on is you screw this little thing on right there, and you slide that right over the lens, and actually it feels pretty light, so I think we'll probably be okay. But we're going to take these out tomorrow and fly a certain flight path and check out how each of these impacts the flight, and do a comparison and see. Alright, see you tomorrow.